Steve um, is kind of taking this in a different direction. So I think one of the things that's happening is we have so many people who are expert in LinkedIn and marketing and things like that have been coming on. I think we need to continue that, obviously, but we need to shift course a bit and bring some other things in here. And this is why I wanted Steve to come on. So now we're talking more CEO Vistage kind of stuff. So he's been a Vistage chair for many years, understands how to develop and build a business. So now we're kind of elevating this conversation. Not that those other things aren't elevated, it's just more tactical. And the idea with Steve, to me, with his background in, management at, Coca-Cola and places like that, and then going out on his own as a consultant and starting Vistage, kind of that's the journey that a lot of people here are on, so I think there's a parallel there. And the idea is, okay, if you're not going to build a business of 100 people, you're going to build a business and you prefer to build a business of one person with a bunch of clients. How do you elevate using those principles of leadership and business development with your clients one-on-one? So becoming that right arm trusted advisor. So you're fundamentally part of their daily decision process, their strategic decisions, the way they're building their business. And that's what he wants to talk about, which I think is great. Steve, do you want to add to that before you get started?
Well, no, Larry, you have the schedule different. I mean, that activity, that's for next week. We had scheduled that for I mean, I thought today.
Oh my God, somebody should interrupt. We're talking about JD. We're talking about JD.
JD, yeah.
That's next week. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm so busy watching.
Didn't you get the memo, Larry?
JD, don't kill me. Don't kill me. Oh my God.
That's it for me, folks. Good night. You've been great.
So, all right. Here we go.
Larry, so you're human after all.
Oh yeah.
Larry, I give that intro about a 4 out of 10. So you got another week to tune it up for Steve there.
Why? So. Nobody interrupted me. All right.
Hey, I sent you a Slack, Larry.
Oh, I'm not even looking. All right.
Just let you dig deeper and deeper.
I'm gonna. You let everyone was enjoying the whole.
I think you were practicing the fine art of changing feet.
So let me go in a different direction.
Too late now.
So it's too late. So the idea here fits that theme as well, because I think what's happening is there's LinkedIn today and there's where LinkedIn is going. And that strategic understanding of where it's going is where JD is. So he's been in LinkedIn since when it started. I forget that. So
I won't bury the lead.
You were doing LinkedIn coaching and consulting before anybody knew what a profile review was. And you're kind of beyond that right now. So the idea is, when you look at how do we compete and stand out in social media, I think, a lot of people are they're working their profiles, but the posts are a disaster. And then there's a whole nother group of people who are just spamming people through the inbox, building sequences and templates. And I'm following everybody in this club on LinkedIn. I have a folder and I go and look at the posts constantly. And I'm going to be harsh on this. There's a lot of room for improvement here, and the opportunities are being lost by not doing that. So, that's what we want to talk about, I think, is where is that trend and how do you capitalize on it? LinkedIn is going to change. It's already happening. We're getting people who are not good are getting squeezed out. LinkedIn is investing serious money. And if nobody's following this, I'm following this guy they hired who was built to create their creator program with creator mode launch. And they're trying to figure out how to elevate the creators. And they actually just opened an incubator. I think they're taking 100 people or something. You have to apply and they review your content strategy and decide if they like your themes and what you're talking about and the way you're doing it. And I think these are the people that are going to start getting And if you're not doing it well, you're going to get crowded out. I can tell you right now, if you got LinkedIn right, you got $1 million business. If you got a consultant business, you're always going to have your 5 clients or 1 client. If you get LinkedIn right, they'll always be there. And that's, I think, what we want to talk about today. So apologies again. Well, I don't have to introduce next week. So we're all set. So JD, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Larry. Now, quick question for you. Do I have screen sharing capability?
Yes, just go down to the green folder.
All right. Does everybody have my slide? My title
Yes.
slide in front? We're all good to go. Well, thank you very much for having me. A lot of what you said is truly right out of what I'm going to bring up for discussion today. And after the talk, we can kind of either have a discussion at large, Larry, whatever you want to do, but to continue the conversation. But what I've done is you and I, in discussing the program for today, we talked about it first, what to do to kind of get out there and make your mark in the digital world. And I just wanted to go back and just share a few things from my own story, talk about what I see today kind of related to you as a correspondent of sorts. Just I've been around the social science of this from the moment I discovered LinkedIn, and I've just truly made it my own. I've asserted my will on the system and put my own DNA overlay on it, and that's how I teach LinkedIn nowadays. It's not about what I say or some other guru or maven or ninja says, because they come with a lot of hype and a lot of bloated promises. I don't live in the world of bloated promises. I live in the world of reality, and the hard truth is that LinkedIn is a meritocracy. It's a level playing field. It's available for everyone to succeed on, but input equals output, as we know. And to Larry's point in introducing me, if you don't put in the effort, it's tough to get the production. So I'm encountering a lot of frequently asked questions these days. I anticipate them, I know them, I'm ready to answer them. And it's not like there's any easy answer. So the first of these questions that are of concern to my clients and students are the basics. And that is, look, I get up, I compete, I go out there. I've tinkered with the profile to some extent. I'm putting content out there, content. That's all we're hearing about today. Why isn't anything coming back to me in return? Well, let me take you back in the time machine to 2006. Here's a futurist going back in time. So LinkedIn kind of looked a little bit like this. It was built, it was archaic by today's standards, very crude renderings of a site that is very vibrant and aesthetically pleasing today. Back in the day, it looked like some undergraduate's IT project. And now it's this vibrant, bustling, energized community of professionals. Now, if we fast forward to present day, 2021, this is what LinkedIn reminds me of. And there's a tremendous urgency to produce, to get your name out, to get found, to get noticed, to build thought leadership, to social sell, all of these other designer vocabulary terms that we've attached to the business conversation these days. And that's what LinkedIn looks like. And how on earth do you cut through that clutter? How do you take the lead? How do you stand out? Well, currently, to understand the state of where LinkedIn is today, I'm going to talk about two economies that are kind of at war with each other. One is the creator economy, and this is where it's all happening. We are creating, we are using our ideas as commerce, our ideas to build a brand, to develop a thought leadership platform. We are creating. The right brain is leading the war against the left brain and is getting out there with more regularity, only to be met by the attention economy. So you have these polar forces. You have the creators going up against the receivers, and the receivers are ultimately not receiving the creation at some point, or so it would seem. So when we talk about the creator economy, we're all broadcast stations right now. So many of you are authors, speakers, consultants, coaches, actresses / dancers, and you're out there on multiple media and you're putting out content. You're parsing your value out in increments that are ideally accepted by a target audience, the so-called target audience. What is the target audience? Great question. So right now, from the LinkedIn creator standpoint, there are many of us, myself included, that really think about what we're going to do out there. We want to get our work out there. We want our work to be liked. There's a very strong ego component that we cannot deny that's taking place on LinkedIn. And what I'm going to ask someone, whoever has noise on, to please mute the microphone. It's distracting.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So what we're talking about is literally putting blinders on and doing some design thinking and really ponder the notion of how are we parsing our value out there. We're ideally doing it at intervals that are acceptable. Ideally, it's being seen by the people we want to see it, but what's truly happening out there? Well, hence the attention economy. So you're creating, you're doing what you need to do, people aren't receiving. Are impressions being formed? And how can LinkedIn truly tell us what impressions are being formed? They used to have a metric on the posts several years ago about impressions, but how in the hell does LinkedIn know if something is making an impression? If you scroll past something, it's probably registered in the nervous system to some respect, but you haven't processed it. You can scroll through a lot of stuff. You can scroll through the content of your first degree connections ad nauseum, and something's got to pull you in because we're constantly distracted. It takes almost a Herculean effort to get your content out there and make sure that the right people see it. Everybody is distracted. Everybody is self-absorbed. I feel your pain. I'd like a little bit more engagement on my posts too, and that's what we're going to talk about. And coming up with these little incremental wins where someone does see it and it does turn into engagement and it converts. We all want conversion, big sales word. And of course, I know this is a learned crowd and this is a very highbrow term. We talk about it in leadership. We certainly talk about it in social media, and that is VUCA. And of course, it can be a very harsh environment out there, and it can literally change at any minute. And really, there's no assurance that anything is going to go through these days. And it ain't easy. In fact, the complexity of LinkedIn is growing seemingly by the hour, and it's getting less and less clear. So I do some writing and some teaching on VUCA. I explain to people that this is a very dynamic environment. We talk about that word dynamic, constantly changing. Larry also alluded to it in introducing me. What you do today may not roll in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. New things are coming down the pike all the time. You're bringing new people into your network. Maybe you're expunging people from your network. LinkedIn is constantly shuffling the deck on you. So when you put out a piece of content, it truly does have that kind of message in a bottle type of effect. And what I'm instructing my clients to do is not be concerned with time of day they post, ideally not farm it out to a virtual assistant, but really critically think your way through these posts that you're putting up on LinkedIn as you stuff the message into the bottle and hurl it over the boat, because we have no idea where it's going. We don't know what shore it's going to wash up on because there's this mystical, magical force. You know it, you love it, you fight it every day. It's called the LinkedIn algorithm. I'm not sure people in LinkedIn on Cubicle Row can explain exactly what the LinkedIn algorithm is. And it's been fueling the discussion in many breakout rooms as to why posts aren't getting seen. Now, back in the day, it was easy for posts to be seen. I could put out a piece of content and I could be assured of a couple thousand views. Not so easy today. I have to work at getting those views. And often, even with the work, I don't get the views. I'm dissatisfied with the way LinkedIn has evolved, but think of the immense volume of information that moves across the platform in any given second. How on earth can technology possibly coordinate it? And how on earth can they arrange it in a way that's suitable for uptake by the human nervous system? Plus, you've got sponsored ads coming at you on a daily basis. Another question that concerns my clients and students, hey, JD, Can I call you JD? I'll usually say yes. How can I get people to return my messages? My inbox is empty. Well, a lot of that has to do with a lot of this. And there's no way that we can control what people are sending us. I'm the same as you. I'm probably more susceptible to it because I build a network. I build a network very organically. I have a lot of people that I'm in their networks in which I'm overlapping, and these folks are sending me stuff. It's just a sea of spam right now, and it's hard to believe that I could tell people that they could truly stand out on LinkedIn by not spamming anyone. And spam, as we know, are unwanted sales messages. I find the practices today offensive, intrusive, and annoying, and they all come under the guise of what we're calling lead generation. I used to talk about lead generation. I think as we move forward, we need to talk less and less about lead generation. Because if there is a conversation out there about building relationships, and certainly you've heard about that conversation to build relationships, why do so many people want to bypass that? Who's buying off some of these lead generation tactics? It's what I call the ugly side of digital marketing. There's seemingly no rationale or reason for some of these messages going out there right now, other than to get you to the lip of their funnel and drag you in. And I ain't buying. Are you? I mean, who's buying without the establishment of trust? Words to ponder. So what I do, I play the inbound game. I let the game come to me. At the start of the pandemic, I was fairly well established in my business. I'm loving my longevity in the industry. It does definitely give me a leg up on a lot of people who have come out of the woodwork and jumped on the LinkedIn gravy train. There are a lot of self-declaring LinkedIn experts out there. And for the record, I do not self-declare as an expert. I let people make up their own minds on that. But what I do is, with all the content that I've put out there through the years, when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, we all were leaning into the online world. It was the virtualization of business. LinkedIn use was skyrocketing. It became a truly crowded place. Most people finally woke up, copped to the fact that they needed to produce content. They needed to work with their profiles a little bit. They need to get themselves out there. Problem was, they again went and practiced all of these bad behaviors. And we see a lot of bad actors out there. And they're not doing what I call creating any intrigue, and intrigue in the positive sense. In fact, when Larry and I were discussing the program today, I initially came to him with the topic of, or title of, creating intrigue in the virtual world. And I think that's really what we need to do, because when you look at the positive definition, positive connotation of intrigue, it's really to put yourself out there in a way that draws positive attention to you, that piques interest and curiosity. And folks, really, that's all I do. I don't know if it classifies as a strategy, but it's a mindset for me, because I don't go out there and sell. I don't pitch. I don't spam. I'm out there, and if I draw enough attention to myself doing what I do, it'll convert to profile views, which will convert to meaningful conversations, which enable me to create a sales moment. And how do I do that? Well, how do you do that? Do you create intrigue? Are you interesting? Are you saying the kinds of things that are drawing people to you? Rhetorical question. Again, I'm putting that there for your contemplation. But what are some of the things I do? For the last several years and moving forward, because I am a futurist of sorts, I'm cultivating this persona of a digital stylist. So where a lot of people, here's the adaptation that I made. Think of the adaptation in your business. When I saw so many people busting into the LinkedIn space with so much bad advice, I had to do a bit of a double take. Again, I'm looking at these folks. They may know how to market better than I do. I don't know. They're very aggressive out there. They're really running their sales pitch in front of a lot of folks, but that's all it was, a sales pitch. And then for the last couple of years, about a year or so before the pandemic, the first hint of us being storytellers came out. We were now charged with being the stewards of our story. Somehow storytelling got to be the new marketing. So the more we shared, the more we pushed details of ourselves over the waterline so people could see it on our profiles, in our Zoom calls, we became more vulnerable. We showed authenticity, big word, as you know, in the last couple of years. We started to move ourselves more out of the safe, politically correct business persona that we had into more of a kind of an extroverted, yes, I'm interested in building the relationship type of persona. And I do it in my own way. I'm a bit of a maverick. I don't do what other people do. I don't want to blend in. LinkedIn is not a place to blend in. And when you're comfortable in your own skin and you're feeling that expression now starting to move from the outside or from the inside out, you can start to create your own style. And that's what I do. It shows in everything I do online, from the setting I've put up here in front of you today in my basement here. My studio is actually behind that closed door, and that's been strategically set up to how I write, how I tailor messages, to how I craft invitations to connect on LinkedIn. I do it with a kind of style that is directly attributable to me. Nobody can mistake it. I don't work off templates. I don't do the same post day after day after day after day. I don't cram sales pitches down anyone's throat. And when I get on a Zoom call with you, I run my Zoom call like a business meeting. I don't just phone it in. Zoom is our lifeline today. And if we haven't been using it, change that, leveraging it for the past 18 months, as we head into another long, cold, lonely winter, to quote George Harrison, it's going to be tough. What have you done? Have you seeded conversations? Have you developed the kind of habits that are going to propel you through the online world? Are you going to be able to look into that webcam and look like you're engaged and present in the moment and attuned to people? I think by now we can sense when people are not attuned to us. It's the body language. They may be looking at the webcam, but they're checking emails or doing online shopping. We want people to be engaged in what we have to say, because that's a way that we start to mobilize brand advocates and build evangelism. And that's how we stand out on LinkedIn. So as I hit the home stretch here before we go into discussion, just a word about standing out on LinkedIn, because that is my primary business. That is what I do. I do it in a no BS way. I let people know that if they're truly interested in standing out, saying it isn't enough. You have to have a near pathological desire to put yourself out there in a way where you're going to be accepted at face value, and make sure you're personally accountable to handle the follow-up. See, a lot of people out there with great content, but they're not doing anything with the engagement that ensues. I pay attention to that. I see who's kind of revolving around what I put out there. And if they inspire me, if they intrigue me, I'm on them. And if they've contributed to my post, I see that as a sign of respect. I have to fight and claw and scratch for every like, comment, and share I get. I'm very grateful. And I let these people know it. And who does that? And that creates intrigue. I visit 99 out of 100 LinkedIn profiles. It's a bunch of snake oil salesmen slinging me something. There's nothing about them on the profile. A profile is a synopsized, encapsulated version of you. Tell me about your past accomplishments, merging it with your present value, and maybe with an eye toward the future. Yes, you must subliminally sell your product. You must talk about client pain and the products you solve, and you must have conviction in the solutions that you design. But your LinkedIn profile cannot be an overt sales pitch. That's not the functionality of a profile. It is now the place where you curate the exhibit on you. It's your narrative. I came up with two parts of a hypothesis back in 2006. And out of all I've done, it seems like the basic stuff I did, the first thoughts I had about LinkedIn, have rung true today. In the sea of all this change, and conceivably not all of it good change, it still stands true that whatever you hope to achieve, whatever that is, clients, expand an audience for your podcast, sell books, get speaking engagements, land peachy consulting gigs, whatever your desired outcome that you envision, It's all relative to the content you put out there in a given moment for people to digest and absorb and consume about you. And the de facto first point of reference on that is your LinkedIn profile. How is it set up? Because if you can create intrigue at that level, you can create intrigue beyond that level. And that will drive your outcomes on the site. If you have the confidence knowing that you're going to be well researched on a site like LinkedIn, where they're going first, let's face it, that's one of the beauties of LinkedIn, is it's gotten to that point. The whole world is kind of caught up to the fact that your LinkedIn profile is ground zero for you. That's where it happens. And if you can tailor that and farm that, then you can do the hunting. And I'll wrap up with something that I do nowadays, which is driving me in the future. And I'm on record as saying that sometimes the best plan is no plan at all. I'm often asked what I do, what my top tips, tricks, techniques, strategies, secrets. There's nothing secret about anything anymore, is there? It's what you make it. So to address the title of the program, How to Make LinkedIn Your Own, sometimes you just have to go off script, and you have to realize that strategy will only take you so far on LinkedIn. And if you're able to create something out of nothing, that's a best use of LinkedIn, because there's no practical textbook, there's no definitive field guide, and there's really nobody who can tell you that their system is going to turn you from a 25K a year consultant into a 30, 35K a month consultant, and see it in their professional headline. I'm not sure that happens. And if it does, it doesn't happen legally, and it doesn't happen without offending people. So I favor an organic bootstrapping approach. This is the way I do it. In my immersive one-on-one engagements with my clients, they are finding that they are opening incredible conversations, co-creating with people, coming from a place of service and not trying to sell a product or service, but really trying to form that relationship, get people on your side, get them to like your content. There's strategies out there that you can work with folks to collaborate on sharing each other's content and start to cross-pollinate in the networks of others. And I think I'll wrap up by saying that the way I connected with Larry, the reason that I'm here is that I must have created some level of intrigue on Clubhouse when Larry heard me for the first time. We connected. We built a relationship that's building. I admire and respect the community, the engaged, vibrant community he's got here. I think as more people see it, it's only going to grow, and he's going to find the right people. But it's an organic bootstrapping approach, is it not? It's one person at a time, coming one event at a time. And you get to see how good a community like this is when you start to maneuver in some communities that just aren't as good. And people are sticking blocks of text this big into the chat room, trying to sell you their product or service. So on that note, I'm going to stop my share. I want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope I didn't put anybody to sleep or send you scampering for your email. So that's all I got with the PowerPoint slide deck. And Larry, how would you like to work this? Shall we facilitate an open-ended conversation here, breakouts? You tell me.
Can I say something to start with?
Please.
I just want to thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart, because it's so refreshing. And I'm kind of, I don't know why I'm emotional, but I think it's because of the authenticity and of the truth that I feel that you are sharing with us. And when you talk about improvisation and doing it organically, that's exactly how I have done it. And I have so often gotten the question too. I'm no digital maverick at all, but I often get the question, who does your strategy? Who does your social media? I said, I don't have one. I do it organically. And like yesterday, my post came, I just got into my inbox early in the morning, an announcement that an interview I'd done 2 months ago was in the air. So that became my post for the day. I didn't know that when I woke up, but it was there. I thought, okay, it's fresh, it's relevant, so let's put it out. So I truly believe that what you are representing is the future. And there are other people in this community like Michael Roderick, who teaches us about copywriting, who is on the same page. And if this community becomes this organic way of creating and collaborating and being out in the world, then I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Well, aren't you nice? And I will say that I feel I'm leading a movement in some way but I mean, what's really behind it? I mean, when you look at the top traits of leaders today, it's not the ability to close business. I'll tell you that much. It's empathy, it's authenticity, it's humility, it's compassion, it's accountability. And why should I go out and say what other people are saying? There's so much bad advice out there on LinkedIn right now. It will make your head spin. And people are buying these, and apologies to digital marketers, really, to some extent, because I come from the world. I come from the marketing world. But I would never throw some of these messages in front of people. It's just not me. It's not how I want to be. There's no brand building in this. Who's building a brand with these messages? And on the invitation to connect, in my hard drive, I have some 50 invitations to connect that I've actually received by LinkedIn users that will blow you away. It's self-sabotage to the nth degree. Why these people feel they need to sell me at the invitation to connect, it's an egregious breach of ethics. And a violation of LinkedIn's terms of service. And I report these people. LinkedIn does nothing. It just makes me feel good. But I've become very vociferous about some of the practices out there. I can't see who's buying. Who's buying off some of these approaches? Anybody here?
Well, let's get some. So I think we should go to Garen, Steve, and then Matt had a question, and then I want to talk a little bit about what Runa said. So I will be facilitating in the club a way of doing LinkedIn in the right way from a thought leadership perspective as a group. That's the idea. And I am very, very aware now in Twitter and LinkedIn how people are doing this, how they're getting known, how they're getting big, how they're building these inbound followings. I'm watching it really carefully, and they are doing collaborations behind the scenes. And I'm not talking about a pod where you're required to comment on somebody's post. So we'll be talking about that soon. So Garen, you had a question or a comment?
Myself, there we go. I just wanted to second Runa with her frustrations, because everybody has these frustrations on LinkedIn. And for me, like, I'm a content creator, so I create content on a daily basis. So I'm actually starting to get intertwined with a lot of these. I see people who have videos that are 1,000 views, 100 comments, all this stuff, and I'm thinking, how are you guys doing it? How do you get to that level? And some of the responses I'm getting are, I need to second JD on it, because it's not authentic, and so many people are convinced that this is the only way that you can do it. So this is why I join these things, because I want to be that person who goes against the grain of and I actually have a video that's calling a lot of people out that I'm going to be posting today on it, because so many content creators and so many people think that there's only one way to be able to get engagement and get following, and it's a very inauthentic way. So I sympathize with everybody's frustrations on here, because I'm in that boat. So it's a mountain. It's like, this is the thing, you can't just snap your fingers and expect to have this many followers and stuff like that too. So I sympathize with everybody as a content creator. So
this is great. And if you look at Leah Turner, if you look at Joel Alge, if you look at Ariel Lee, there is no pod going on there at all. There is real community, there's real engagement. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that's real. If you look at, I'm not going to mention names, but you see 100 comments, start looking at the comments. They're using,
I tried it a week ago.
Lempod. They're using Lempod.
Yes.
They're using pods.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. And you know what it does is it doesn't build business, because you're not building real authentic relationships with anybody. So it doesn't work.
Well, you also have a lot of pat on the back and support seeking behaviors, validation seeking behaviors. If you're honored and delighted to be speaking somewhere, or you crushed it at your latest speaking engagement, what are people going to say when you post that? They're going to say, congrats, or way to go, or thanks for sharing. I mean, great post, thanks for sharing, kudos. That's not engagement. That's
So let me
just an
let me answer Nathan's
artificial
question.
inflation. Yeah.
And then we should go to Steve. I'm just going to, sorry to interrupt people. I just want to keep it rolling so everybody gets a chance. But the pod idea is something I learned about a year ago. Revenue Climber, or Sales Sherpa at the time is what I was calling it, started as a LinkedIn pod. At one point, I had 200 people in it. And we had 8 chat groups in LinkedIn. I did it a spreadsheet, and then I moved it to LinkedIn chat groups. We would post our post and comment on each other's posts. And it's a great idea for about a month or a couple of months, because it starts to get you in the flow. I left the pod and I went from 8,000 views per post, 50, 60, 70 comments to 2 comments. Well, now, and I was using sequences to get meetings, which was building the pod. So I was using sequences and some automation. I got rid of the automation because I realized LinkedIn was shutting people's profiles down and banning them, called LinkedIn jail. And all of a sudden, over time, I built up this organic approach, and I started commenting on other people's posts that I wanted to know. And then I got flooded with meetings, flooded. And that allowed me to build the speaker group and the community group and a lot of other stuff that people aren't even seeing right now that I'm building behind the scenes, all through posting without a pod, building connections offline on meetings, Zoom meetings, getting into other people's communities and groups. This is what happened with Ellen Moore. Some people here from that group, and Michael Roderick's group, and commenting on other people's posts, and then posting strategically. This is how it works. And it's incredibly powerful. And your clients don't have to be on LinkedIn to get to them. There's a whole nother strategy around that. So everybody can do this right here. So anyway, Steve, you wanted to go, and then Matt, I think, had a question. So Nathan, did that answer your question about pods? It's gaming the system with required post commenting.
Yeah, sort of. I still don't have a good sense of what a pod is.
So 15 people agree. I'm going to post my link to my post, and then within an hour or within the day, I will comment on your post and you will comment on my post. If I see somebody's post and it's an incoherent mess promoting an article they read, and I got to go read a 15-minute article because they don't explain the article in the post, I don't want to do it. So I say, hey, awesome.
Great post.
Great post. That doesn't work on LinkedIn. And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my God, everybody is doing it like this. And they're getting nothing out of it.
But if you're not going to give any kind of feedback, good or negative, good or bad, I mean, how are you going to build engagement of just saying great post?
Exactly.
Well, you're hoping someone in that pod will like it. If it's not mutually agreed upon, it's what I call social coercion. And that's when you tag people against their will or without their permission. And it happens every day for me. I'm tagged by people. There's no way in the world I'm going to share this crap. And they put my name on it. And what am I going to do? On the one side, I want to stay connected with them. They're good people. But I have used it as a teaching moment. And I've said, I appreciate the fact that you want me to help you with this. Maybe take a comment and individually address me in a comment, ask me a question that I could weigh in on, but don't just use me for my like. It's they know you're connected. They know you got a big network. They'll tag you. So Nate, a lot of times you'll see a post with 50, 60, 70, 100 people on that post in that text box. They haven't all agreed to be tagged. They're just being tagged. They're being coerced to like the post.
Yeah, that happened to me yesterday, actually, with somebody, and I was just like, what the hell is this?
It's rampant.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I just thought, I don't know what this is, but I don't like what I'm seeing. And all these people were tagged, and I was one of them, along with, and I'm just going, hey, I just wound up on your list. What's going on?
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. So
If it's done
you
in
know
the
how to interpret
context,
it.
if it's done in the context of a community where you're mutually supporting each other based around a very specific relationship, then it works and it makes a big difference in that post. If it's done because it's a person that you want to boost, you want them to boost you into their network, it's spam.
Yeah.
It's like also putting 20 hashtags doesn't work either. So that's a whole nother thing. But Steve, you've been really patient here.
Yeah, JD, thank you for your remarks. A question for you. You talked about the profile and spent some time on that. And I know from dealing with someone else on LinkedIn that not too long ago the about section had changed or been modified to where it's my understanding that now the limitation is 2,600 characters, which I guess, I mean, that's an awful lot. I guess it's about 400 or 500 words, but my question relates to, I've seen some people that turn that about section into basically their marketing brochure. Here's why you should use me. Here's what I do. Here's what you get from that. And other people that I respect more that seem to be more knowledgeable, like yourself, are saying, do the Patrick Lencioni thing from his book Getting Naked, which is just start providing information and thoughts and ideas to people. And even though it seems very long, that people, if they're really interested, it will increase that engagement level. So my question surrounds around the length of that and what you have found. Do you agree with that principle that someone will read a very, very long one if it's really providing some ideas to you as a prospect, as opposed to a brochure pitch on your consulting practice?
It's a great question, Steve. And yes, you are correct. So the educational piece is that LinkedIn they changed the name of that section from summary to about, because I think too many people confused it with the summary from a resume. And about kind of melds better into that whole storytelling movement that we're underway with. And I think it's a place for your personal and psychological narrative. You're selling, make no mistake about it, but it's personal selling. And a profile is a profile. It should combine the best elements, and the way that I write them for my clients is I combine the best elements of a bio, a CV. I do pull in some aspects of the resume for keywording if necessary. It is important to have some SEO infrastructure, but also like I'm writing a feature story on them for the Rolling Stone. There should be some elements that, to get back to our theme, create some intrigue. The profiles that all of us have landed on that are just overt sales pitches. How do you feel? Let me put that out there for the class. How do you feel when you click on someone's profile? It's nothing but, you can just smell it a mile away. It's just a sales pitch. There's no underlying information about the subject. It's about some problem that you may be experiencing, or some aspect of their solution that is that convinces them it's the best in the industry or a state-of-the-art solution. And granted, again, we're not here to take our egos out of the equation. We want people to know what it is we do. But what you've done in the past, talk about your career arc. Has what you've done through your whole professional life prepared you for this moment? Your profile is basically, in my view, it's an audition to get the conversation. If your profile is pleasing, you've preconditioned people to do business with you, and you don't come off as just another seller. That's how I structure profiles.
My reply, when you said, how do you feel when you see that? My reply to that is that age-old line that many of us hear about sales presentations, when someone who, they show up and then they throw up in terms of hearing things
sales thing, yeah.
Yeah, that you as the as the potential client aren't necessarily interested in, as opposed to following what in Lencioni's book on getting naked. If you actually just start talking about some of the real powerful ideas or approaches or tips that you have found really effective with a certain client, and in a genuine way, that's very different than being show up and throw up. It's like I'm giving you some information that maybe is helpful to you. And if you want to know more, then truthfully, leave a way to contact me. And it's a no selling, no cost, no selling type of conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that, for so many years, I saw profile writers out there talking about the call to action. Well, think about this, folks. Do we really need a call to action on our profiles? Don't people know by the time they get to our profile, by this time, how to take the next step with us? Maybe connect on LinkedIn, go to the contact info. If there's a website, there's typically a contact info form. I don't think we really need to waste much time on a call to action on the LinkedIn profile. On posts, different story. And that can be worded in very strategically.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's go to Matt and then Remco. And I want to make a comment about what you just said about funnels. It's very, very important to understand your funnel. And the call to action is an offer. And there's a way to do it, like JD's saying, where it's not spammy, but
I just put my email address at the last sentence of my LinkedIn profile about section. The dialogue begins here, and I just give my email address.
Everybody's got their own way that can work.
Everybody's got their own way.
We have this thing, it's, click the big green button. And, I get some pretty decent traffic on that sometimes. And it's in the featured section because LinkedIn won't let you do it, unfortunately, because LinkedIn, if anybody's here is on Twitter, Twitter is awesome technology. LinkedIn's technology is horrible. It's a mess, but there's workarounds like putting the call to action button. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to sell you anything. You can see what I'm doing. And then there's an offer in the funnel and it works by itself. And I find when I'm talking to people, they often already act like they know me. And I've never talked to them. And that's because the profiles is done pretty well. And I think when you do video, you get that too. People, it's almost like they know you. You don't have to explain yourself that much. So sorry, Matt, you've been waiting a long time. You were looking for bad examples.
Oh, that's okay. I've heard a few, and
JD, we've already gotten. Yeah,
JD said that there's so many that there's not even.
There's so many. I've got but it's just some of them are so laughable.
Well, you mentioned one. Oh, I'm a speaker. I'm honored to be a speaker. Well, I did speak, and I had to do that. It was part of the, being a speaker was putting this stuff out on social media, and I didn't even know what else to say other than, yeah, I'm honored to speak at this event. And here,
that's a missed opportunity, because what you need to do when that happens is in the post, explain the theme.
Yeah.
So there's a problem in the world related to mental health. This is what that looks like. This is why this is so important, et cetera, et cetera. I'm so excited to join on stage mention the group of people that are coming, and then explain it. And then, by the way, here's the link to the.
Yeah. You want to exactly right. You want to reframe it. And anytime you start a post with I, me, or my, you're in trouble.
Right.
It's all about you. It's not about the reader. I'll take you back to the newspaper headlines. The great newspaper editors who have those big meetings, and we've seen them in film. What are they trying to do? They're trying to come up with what? What's their one goal is to sell papers, and how do they do that?
A hook,
a headline, a grabber.
Yeah.
When the news folks come on at 10:10 and they know they're going to commercial and they tease the next segment. Gee, well, maybe I better not go to the bathroom. I don't want to miss that next report. They're teasing. Always be teasing. When you say, I was honored and delighted to speak at this prestigious conference and crushed it, well, congrats.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Way
I
to
would
go.
never say that. But
I wouldn't have expected anything less.
I want to make sure we get to Remco and George, and then go back to JD as well. I will second this. Every single person in this call should have be studying copywriting. Every single person. I've got 4 copywriting books. I'm on that hardcore because I don't know how to do it. So, but there's a way to do it. It's a taught skill. So Remco, you had a question, and then we should go to George.
Thanks. And thanks, JD, for your information. I have a question and I've got a comment about the authenticity and being real. So somebody had posted something and I replied, and it was not just a standard reply. It was just like a question to what he had posted. And the interesting thing is, even though he has a ton of followers, he actually took the time to reply and have a look at my profile. So it does work when you're very authentic. What I'm struggling with is not as much the authenticity, is coming up with content. So defining who I am and staying true to myself. I can do it, but to do it in a meaningful manner that people actually want to see it. And I like mixing fun with business. So I always make fun of everything and anything. That's just who I am. And it's not to deal with anything. It's just, I like having that lighthearted interaction. So I have a page and I have my LinkedIn profile, and I post a lot of stuff on my page, and then I go to my profile. My question is there a better way of doing that, or should I just stay with my profile and not with my page? Because that's a bit what I'm struggling. I'll post it to myself again and have a different subject line or whatever to promote it in a slightly different way. But they're basically reposting what I did on my page. And I don't know if that's a smart way of doing it or if there's a better way.
You're talking about your LinkedIn company page.
Yep.
Okay, so playing the LinkedIn company page against the personal profile. LinkedIn is a personal selling platform. So LinkedIn will recognize content differently coming from a personal account than it will from a business account. And if you're Sony or Deloitte or IBM or any of these huge companies that put out tons of content in a given day and who have LinkedIn representatives working with them to get some kind of edge and do advertisements and all, you're going to kind of be up against it, so to speak. Company pages can be great archives of content. And again, the inbound game. If your personal outreach is to gain a greater company following, take people to the company page. I've done that myself. I've done a dedicated post on my personal account that's designed to just drive eyeballs to my company page, and they'll see the stuff there. And I'll get maybe a few likes out of it, which is good. I mean, the company page, I'm a sole prop. I'm a one-man band. Nobody's going to network in with me. I don't have a recruiting function. I'm just there to kind of post content that you can't get anywhere else. And it's indigenous to my company. For you, some of the things you could do, you could share the company content. You could do a post through the company voice and share it as yourself. I've done this too. I just don't get the traction. LinkedIn kind of kills it.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing. So I post it on the page and then I repost it under myself, but I change the wording.
Yes.
So that they're both unique.
Yes.
But I just don't know if it's smart to do it that way or just do it on as me and leave the page for what it is.
When in doubt, post it as you, but in many posts, I put a tag, I tag my company in the post.
Okay.
Remco, there's a Clubhouse meeting each week on Tuesday. It's part of Bob Umar's LinkedIn Thought Leadership Group at 3 o'clock Central Time, and it's on company pages. So they do it every week. If you're interested in that, let's go to George, and then I want JD to have an opportunity to talk about how people can engage with him if they're interested in talking. And then we're going to go into a half hour of breakdown networking group if people want to stay.
So anyway, you hit a trigger, Larry, a few minutes ago, and maybe JD or yourself could expand just a little further on this. And I don't mean to hijack in a whole different direction, but you said the word Twitter. I have developed a just horrible impression of Twitter overall. And, you know, there is so much drivel that goes on in Twitter that I find it, you know, emotionally a place I don't want to be. And yet, you know, you're implying that there's some significant value to being in Twitter, but can either of you talk a little bit more about why I'd want to spend my time in the cesspool of Twitter?
Two things.
Go ahead, Larry.
Well, the first thing is I didn't say there's value in Twitter. What I said is their technology is amazing. So that's different. Their technology is incredible. It's so smart, and they know exactly how people use the system, and they facilitate that. Whereas with LinkedIn, you're always climbing up a hill. I figured out how to use Twitter. It's not doing anything for me yet, but I do believe it will. And what Twitter's doing for me right now, it's helping me understand how to post on LinkedIn, because you're forced to think harder. That's what it does. Now, Twitter is not Twitter. Twitter is 5 million things. So there's breakouts. You can create in Twitter what's called a feed, your own feed or your own group or something.
A list.
Thank you. Yeah. So I created my own list, and I'm following a whole bunch of people who are using Twitter for marketing extraordinarily well and are very interesting to me. And most of them are copywriters. And I want people to start following the list. So I'm going to start publishing that to the club as we work on Twitter. And the thing about Twitter is you learn cutting edge marketing techniques on Twitter. I have unfollowed anything political. It's all about marketing and business for me right now. But if you want to follow management practices, top management practices, you can curate that on Twitter, and you're going to find amazing people talking for free about their best advice and creating what are called threads, threaded posts. They're amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hidden value in Twitter as well. And I know that when LinkedIn first introduced its Twitter integration, which was probably, I put that back right around 2009 or 10, somewhere in there. I mean, there are a lot of people that just find the hashtag a very aversive symbol. And they saw that people were posting LinkedIn posts as tweets. And it was just a dissonant effect in the brain. They just didn't like to see those kind of posts. And hashtags, as we know, are sans Twitter, are a huge piece of content marketing strategy. So I think that it's just, LinkedIn has no way that you can curate your feed or personalize your feed just yet. I mean, hell, they have the worst CRM system. I'm owned by Microsoft, and look at the CRM system they have.
I think
So,
they just built it on crappy technology.
Now
they're suffering and they can't change it. And they know this, but they just nothing they can do about it.
It's just remarkable how poor it is. I mean, I don't know. The only way, and that's why the primacy recency effect, I mean, the reverse chronological order of connections on LinkedIn becomes so important, because I'm finding that the connections I'm making during the pandemic, I mean, the acceleration of the relationship development during COVID has been astonishing to me as a psychologist and a social science. I see it as a natural byproduct of missing the human element and needing to bond with people. And we do it through these Zoom calls. But at the same time, there are people in business I've known for 10, 15, 20 years. They don't reach out. They don't return my emails. They don't chime in. We're just kind of connected in title only. But think of the business you're doing nowadays. How many people can honestly say that the best business seems to come to them right now because we've learned more about ourselves during this period of self-assessment? We're a little bit more reconciled with the value that we bring as professionals. We're just telling our stories a lot better now, right?
Yeah, I'm amazed at the people I'm meeting every day. And when I was doing lead generation to do this before, when I started this, it was not happening in the right way. And when I switched to the stuff you're talking about, everything changed, and I'm able to build a company off of doing these very simple things.
What's a little unique for you, you're a facilitator / community builder. And I think there's this, again, we always seem to get implored by certain people in certain areas. And now it's community building is a huge thing. And we're being inspired by people to build communities. And I'm a podcaster, broadcaster. I'm looking to kind of reconfigure my LinkedIn network and see who's in my audience now. I'm starting to transition from looking at my network as a network of resources to a bristling, energized portal through which I can engage and
Right.
offer something through podcasting. So there's, and again, that comes with the reinvention that we're all doing. We're all morphing.
Right.
I'm working with more people who are not the person they were professionally 2-3 years ago.
So true. So Randy, you had a question, and then let's JD. I think you should just explain kind of what you do for people, and who.
I don't
should
know what
reach
the
out
hell
to.
that is. I just
All right.
wake up and
You don't
kill it.
want to make your offer. That's up to you.
I kill
Um,
about 16 hours and then I go back to sleep.
If you want to talk to JD about your profile, your customization
Reach out to me.
of how you're presenting yourself. That's it's a one at a time, one person thing.
Look at this open body language.
So Randy,
I'm accepting of everyone.
Randy, you had a question or a comment?
I'm enjoying JD's open body language.
And by the way, you want to talk authenticity? Flannel jammies, folks.
Yeah, I have my sweat bottoms on. I can't.
At least you're wearing something. At least you're wearing.
Here's
Well,
some
you gotta be appropriate from the waist up, you know.
Here's some more authenticity. My teddy bear from Canada with the Canadian maple leaf and Canada as a collar.
There you go.
Courtesy of my girlfriend, Patricia. How's
Beautiful.
that for authenticity?
Who doesn't love a good stuffed animal? Absolutely.
Well, no, I was actually just going to make a quick comment, Larry, regarding Twitter. I do have a gentleman that I've worked with when I first launched sort of a beta version of a VCTV streaming channel, and he drove tens of thousands of very targeted venture investors and everything to that site using Twitter. Very reasonably priced and does work for a lot of major companies. But if you're willing to spend between, say, $2,000 and $5,000 and you want a lot of people to show up, this guy is just amazing. And so if that's something that is of help to somebody, send me a thing on LinkedIn, whatever, and I'll be happy to share that with you.
Yeah, share it. That's very helpful. Sometimes you got to shortcut this stuff. You just got to go to somebody who's already done it 100 times and say, help me do this. Because that takes a while to figure these things out sometimes. And Twitter and YouTube and places like that take some pretty serious effort and money sometimes because they're crowded.
Well,
I think LinkedIn's going to be there.
Point.
I think LinkedIn.
Yeah,
will be
to your
there
point,
too.
I agree. LinkedIn is like, so their software is so terrible, and Twitter, I think, has really is, well, it was invented much later, and it's just more technologically sound, and
Exactly.
and YouTube can be just a great environment, but it is really tough to sort of navigate through it and figure out how to really drive eyeballs. And anyway, so I agree with all of what you're saying.
So let's do some breakout rooms. Is anybody leaving? Because it'll kind of imbalance the thing if I don't know. Okay, thanks, Runa. Thanks for coming.
Do we really need breakout rooms with this few folks? I like this. Just my 2 cents. I mean,
we could do it this way. I think the 2 to 3 group leads a longer form conversation, but it is kind of shrinking down. What we got 11.
I think I know everybody here. I mean, at this stage, I think one of the things to talk about is my goal today was to give people food for thought. I mean, at this point, there's not a whole lot out there to be taught to a group like this, because everybody here is kind of an agile LinkedIn user. Now, I hear a lot about, the comment I get is I'm not using LinkedIn effectively. I think all of us could use that. But I think that's kind of like the start of this trend that I'm talking about in terms of digital style and making the thing your own. Because again, it seems like every community I go to now, there's 3 or 4 LinkedIn experts out there, and I just sit back and shut up. And it's forced me to kind of rethink how I present myself and take a page out of my own playbook. And I think that's where we're at right now, is how we self-define, self-assess, and how LinkedIn figures with that. And that whole inbound thing, you're going to put yourself out there in a certain way. You're not going to put your A game out there. You're going to tease people to learn more about you and talk about the A game one-on-one with them. So I think that's what I hope to accomplish here today, was just using the site as it's meant to be used for you, not because I say you should do something or someone else says you should do something. I'm starting to see a little bit more of that with a group like this, for sure.
What I'd like to see is people upping their game. I mean, I have an approach where I have little folders in Chrome of the people I'm following. And
yeah,
if I click the link, it takes me right to their posts. So I'm not wasting a lot of time. It's very efficient. And I pull open all those tabs and I go through one, and I would say 50% of them, I can't even make a comment.
Yeah.
Because the post is so bad. And I'm kind of like, why are you even doing this? And then I'll see something posted 3 weeks ago and there's no new post. I'm like, just don't even do it. You know, go spend a week figuring it out and what your strategy is, or hire a coach to help you do that if you can't figure it out yourself, and then do it.
How do you guys feel when you're scrolling down and you're seeing a colleague, good colleague, and we've all seen this, who just completely shoots him or herself in the foot on video? And you just want to reach through the screen and give them a hug and just say, you know, I mean, look, good intentions, I know, but and we saw that a lot in the early stages of the pandemic, especially, you know, people walking around their houses with their iPhone, like shooting themselves up from their belt buckle so you see their whole nose. And I mean, it begs the question, one really well produced, top-notch, well-positioned video versus 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 ones that you just push out for the sake of pushing them out.
It's so true. And there's two things that make me crazy. One is a video without subtitles. Big mistake.
Well, I'm guilty of that, but I'm going to be learning. So
yeah, I think you got to have subtitles, because a lot of people with video are not opening the volume, but they want to see it. And then I think the second thing that's a real problem is, you know, somebody posting a 20-minute podcast on LinkedIn without
true also,
without a post that tells you what's in the podcast. And then the podcast is, oh, by the way, you know, there's a link to my podcast in the comments or something, for the one person who actually wants to go watch the whole damn thing. You know, people are on YouTube looking for podcasts to watch, or Spotify or Apple. They're not on LinkedIn looking for a diversion of an article or a podcast that's going to take them 20 minutes to figure out.
That's a good point. And that's why the construction of good-looking audiograms are so important. And audiograms do have intrigue capability. They will pull people in.
What do you mean audiograms? What is that?
An audiogram is when you're a podcaster, you put out a nice image of your podcast with your branding, and you have that audiogram, that little audio meter that goes, and it's just like a minute 15. It teases the full episode. And the convention has become, you put out an audiogram with a link to the full broadcast in a comment below. So you publish the post without putting the link in there and let it buffer a little bit, come back, put the link in the first comment.
Jason, I've been using subtitles, and the accuracy is fair, but there's still a lot of cleanup. ClipScribe, is that better than subtitles?
It is.
It's more accurate.
Phenomenal.
Okay, thank you for that.
What's it called?
ClipScribe.
You put it in the chat.
I've heard of it.
Strangely enough, like, I met the guy in Dallas, just like happened to know him, and so it's been a great relationship. But I've also tried 1,000 tools, and the accuracy is just amazing. It's so fast when you go in there to clean up, and it's just like, oh, do. And they just started.
We have tried so many
audiograms as well.
We have tried so many. Like Otter is one of the big. It's terrible. So there's just
Otter
like
sucks. I'm sorry.
You need to use just really awesome.
See, I've had good results from Otter.
Oh, we have not.
Jason, what do you do? Are you a marketer?
I help people put shows together. Honestly, very sales focused shows. So video version, podcast version.
How cool!
And then have immediate conversations with your ideal prospects, kind of that approach to podcasting.
Nice.
And have a couple of shows of my own. So
I just went to the
I will connect with you.
This thing about Clip
Awesome.
Scribe, is it better than Otter? For, like, could you use it for an entire segment, or is it
No,
just
it's
for
really
clips?
for little, you're going to make
okay.
those subtitle things.
Little
and stuff.
promo kind of video, LinkedIn style
Okay.
videos.
Yep.
You're talking about.
Thank you.
George, did you have a comment?
Just, is it click or clip?
Clip Scribe, right?
Clips.
Yeah. P as in Paul. Yeah.
All right, because I went to the other one and it's an available domain.
I think tool sets are important. And there's also a guy in our group, Randy Spillane, who will be speaking. I think he's about a month out, but he's got some stuff up on his profile. And he looks at video in terms of operations. So he's got some support with creating your personality and your brand and speaking on camera and all this, but he's created this operating system underneath it. Kind of like what Stephen Pope did with the Content Machine, who spoke last month, who's the one who was talking a lot about TikTok, which is another big deal to me. I think TikTok's like a huge deal for business people. Remember when it was funny? Yes. Remember when
YouTube
YouTube was
dancing?
No. Remember when YouTube was funny cat videos?
Yeah, I do.
TikTok's going to be a big business platform. And if you want to look at who's doing it right, Stephen Pope is one and Jackie Hermes is another. Those two have totally figured out TikTok. And what Randy did, which I like, and Canva is another one that's important, is how do you do it right? These systems have cultures. You have to understand the culture. There is a way to title a TikTok video. There's a way to do it. There's a way to, the hooks you have to use. It's very specific in every single platform. And I'm not saying I'm great at these things. I just understand how to do it, but I haven't done anything well or effective yet except LinkedIn, but it's because I haven't tried yet. But I will go to TikTok next, because TikTok and LinkedIn are the only two places you can get fast organic reach, because it's not crowded yet.
Cool.
It's not that hard. I needed some speaking training, and I needed to get over my mindset of I'm not an entertainer or an edutainment guy. I'm not going to be an Alex Sheridan or a John Palmer. I'm just not going to do it. But what I was taught was how to do it in my own way. And there's techniques. And I would highly recommend anybody who's serious about this to get some video coaching.
Yeah, well, I'm getting, well, video, you mean on camera coaching?
On camera coaching.
Yeah,
So there's a guy in our group who's John Scott, Ruggero de la Santa. Ruggero is an acting coach, and John is a voice coach for singers. Yeah. And I worked with them, and it helped a lot.
It does help. And it's because it's good to plug into someone like that. It's not so much you establish a good, safe feedback loop with someone. I've coached speakers. Right. I've coached a few TEDx speakers, and I don't hang out my shingle for it. It's just something that kind of naturally evolved. And yeah, again, it's creating intrigue. The better you are at speaking, the better you are at extemporaneous speaking. You'll draw attention to you, because then you don't use cliches. You train your brain to not go down those ruts of how you speak, or those passé descriptions that you've used for so many years. And you don't default to resume speak in your LinkedIn profile, and you just come off as something better, the so-called best version of yourself.
One of the best ways too is just doing the reps, having a podcast, having a show, having a couple of videos out on LinkedIn,
right,
and watching them back, listening them back. None of us want to do that.
Yeah.
But it forces us to become a better just communicator in life, like you're saying.
Yeah. And it's like here, I've got so much content, we're drowning in it. And, one of the initiatives for October is figure out how to use it and where to use it. And this is why I do these spotlights. So I'll put myself up in the spotlight, because now I have a piece of content for lots of different places, and we can pull the transcripts and turn them into articles. And some of the stuff I'm working on with Nathan around writing chapters for a book. All of this stuff can be done. Oh, Travis Lochner is going to speak on this. I think he's one of the best at this. He figured out how to do this digitally with innovation around how do you take like a live show and turn it into 6-month content program. The technology underpinning of that is actually very difficult to get right, but it's there and it's cheap or free, right?
Larry, quick favor. Can I share my screen for just a moment?
Of course.
Nate, you were asking about pods. You were still a little unsure as to the whole pod thing.
Yeah.
I have a
seems
great
kinda
example
nebulous
for
to
you.
me.
I can show you mine. I got one still too.
I literally, I always have LinkedIn up. So I've got the side view and I do have LinkedIn up right now. So I just literally got this. So here's the subject: Future of Work webinar series. Will you join? So immediately I know that this gal who I know, Deb Coviello, who I've guested on her podcast, promotes very well on LinkedIn typically, but look, she's creating a pod here. So she's tagged me and 46 folks here. 6,
Wow.
7, 8, 9. There's 50 people here tagged.
Well,
and what's she doing?
That's not a pod though.
That's
a promotional group.
She's got an affiliate marketing link. She's trying to promote her podcast.
Yeah, but let me show you the pod I'm talking about. I'm talking about something a little different.
Okay. That's an example of a pod. I know the pod is where there's messages, but that's
right.
just started.
So let me just
who
show.
knows?
I'll show you, Nathan. So
Please.
I kept this because I was asked to do it, and I just kind of said to people, I don't know if you want to do this, but if you want to do it, go at it. So I did it in the chat for a while, but it's hard to do it in the chat because there's a limit of how many people you can have. So our pod, and I do recommend this for people who are, oh wait, oh no, it's not here. It's in groups. Sorry. So it's in recent, here it is, groups. So I created a group. So what's going on here is I got 45 people in the group, and see Blake posted, Jeremy posted, John posted, Brad, Jason, what they're doing, Dan, Philip. So there's a whole bunch of people that are doing this. And what happens then is Blake posts, and then Jeremy, John, Brad, Jason, etc. will comment on that post, whether they care about it or like it or not, and vice versa. That's what a pod is.
Yeah, that's what it just started out that way. She just posted it. So she's trying to get people liking this and promoting it. And she's got an affiliate link, obviously.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's how summits work. She's trying to get eyeballs on the summit through her affiliate link, so that if they buy the summit content, she gets a commission.
Yeah. Affiliate
I do that. Yeah, and summits are another. You could do a whole thing on summits, man. That's the pros and cons of summits.
Never done that. Okay, interesting.
They're probably only going to get more prolific doing them.
I think there's an overwhelm challenge here, and this is a big part of what I want to work on with the Revenue Climber Club is hone these things into programs. So you don't have to figure it all out, and then have the supporting people. So it's like, okay, if you need, a certain type of help, JD's the person. If you need a different type of help, Jason's, the person, Nathan, writing, and then you've got a program as opposed to going to a thing, a person, or figuring it out yourself. I think the 30-year-old cohort out there has kind of got this. Like, they're just used to it. They grew up being in these digital communities, just doing this stuff and scrambling around and multitasking all day long. But I think, Jason, you're maybe a little younger, but I think, a lot of the people that are coming into our community did not grow up with this, and it's irritating to them because we're networking. I want to go meet people, but if you just go meet people and you haven't done this other stuff well, you're solving the symptom of meeting people, but it's not going to work very well because you're just meeting people, but you don't have your stories, you don't have your digital presence, you don't have your market focus and point of views, you don't have your writing. It's just, we're living in a different age where this is table stakes for any business to do the stuff well that we're talking about. And I'm following, what do I got? I have 450 people that have signed up for my stuff, in the last 8 months in one form or another. 235 people in the free community section and 46 people in that LinkedIn pod. And I'm watching them on a regular basis in these little Chrome folders. And I'm like, 5% of these people are doing this well.
Yeah. And I think to your point of that age curve, it may come naturally, but there's 1.5 million people younger than that doing it the wrong way. Still, I think there's still best practices. And, you talk about authenticity, but it's also, you kind of have to still be purposeful with, this is the public persona I want to be. It's me, but you kind of have to be purposeful with it. Someone has mentioned on here, like they want, they're humorous and they want to do this and stuff. You kind of have to have that North Star to pull yourself back to, and like, keep that voice.
I totally agree with you. So and I want to rephrase what I said, because it's not that they're doing it well, it's they're not afraid or overwhelmed by it. So they know how to get out there and just do all this stuff, but they're not doing it well. And the other part of many of them, the other part is a lot of these people in that generation don't know how to build connections and do business in the right way. And building those relationships is just not part of the DNA. And I think our group has that. So it's kind of, it's an advantage. And the business strategic mindset is an advantage, which is missing. The short-term thinking is a problem. I think here we're more able to think long-term strategically, because that's how people build consulting practices and do corporate jobs and be the VP of whatever, or the COO of this, or, CEO, founder, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Actually, it's just coming from a different place. The problems are different.
Good point. Well, on that note, folks, I have to shove off and get ready for a Zoom at the top of the hour. And what can I say, Larry?
Thank you so much for doing this. It was fantastic. I really appreciate you came in with a real structure and a point of view and, provocative statements to get people thinking. And that's what we really want to have. And, George and I were talking about this yesterday, and I have had a miss recently on this. And, I was actually kind of surprised. And I don't want that to happen again, of, sort of a off the cuff rambling.
Well, I'm one of those speakers that has made a seamless transition to virtual. I think that's going to be another, you were talking about speaking in general, but again, you'll start to see as we hit the colder weather, I think a lot more people going out for business to help coaching and folks on camera. I have a client that I work with, a guy who I thought about bringing in here, but I want to make sure that I bring people in who are good for your community, because I'll come when I can. I love what you're doing. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And I encourage everyone to connect. Please I think that's the piece, is if people are showing up every week and having great discourse, that has to lead to great collaboration at some point.
Well, the idea of the community platform as it's forming now is that it's working on your business with other people in a system with an organized approach. So, there should be a space in there for, LinkedIn strategic planning of posting together. At mentioning is really powerful, but you got to do it in the right context. I feel perfectly fine at mentioning after a meeting like this, a select group of people, including you as a speaker, who are part of the thing. That's what it's for in the first place. And then maybe another person who say, hey, I'm sorry you missed it or whatever, but there's ways to do it. I think, and if we work on it in a channel, everyone will know, hey, this is happening and I'm a part of that. And I'm going to do my own post version of it. And so that's the intentionality behind that.
Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me and I'll see you folks at future meetups and maybe on future one-on-one Zooms.
Awesome. And
Okay.
thanks again.
Bye, guys.
Okay.